long-term care. Speaker, last week the Auditor General released a scathing report detailing the CCAC's failing of our most vulnerable citizens. And Mr. Speaker, the CCAC's failing the people of Ontario means this Liberal government has failed the people of Ontario. The Liberals failed when they allowed 40% of funding to go directly to bureaucracy, which is quite unheard of. Mr. Speaker, every member in this House must have heard a horror story of a patient being denied the CCAC service they deserve. Mr. Speaker, why did the minister ignore the cries of those patients in need? And where was the accountability in this government to ensure cost-effective care?
Thank you. Minister of Health, Long-Term Care.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate the question. I think the member knows that I spoke to the Auditor General's report last year. I endorsed her report. I accepted it. Sorry, last week I accepted her report. I accepted all of her recommendations, and I indicated that I plan, as the minister, to implement all of her recommendations in her report, Mr. Speaker. But I also mentioned that since earlier this year, we've been very engaged. In fact, the government had asked some time ago for Gail Donner, an expert panel, to look at home care for us. She presented her report in January of this year, and since then we've accepted and implemented all of her recommendations as well, and we have a 10-point action plan that reflects her recommendations. We're going to be working with both reports, implementing both reports in their entirety, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, back to the minister. Minister, far too long this Wynne Liberal government has ignored all those people who were turned away or moved down the wait list at the CCACs. For 5 years, this ministry failed to conduct an analysis to show whether service providers could deliver better direct programs. This Liberal government allowed costs to skyrocket without considering the damage to our healthcare system. Mr. Speaker, it's time for action, not studies or high-priced consultants. It's time for accountability. Minister, the Auditor General's report clearly shows you're incapable of controlling the bureaucracy in the healthcare system. Are you not up to the job?
Hear, hear. Minister?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the member opposite knows because he has a background in the health sector, and I appreciate that and enjoy the fact that he will be an effective critic for that and I'm sure other reasons. But I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that we have world-class health providers that are working in our CCACs and with the contracted agencies providing support to people, roughly 800,000 Ontarians around the year. But I want to point out that the party opposite did vote against our $250 million increase annually for our CCACs, for home and community care going forward in the next 3 years. We're investing $2.5 billion in our CCACs. We're implementing, we're not having another study, we're not doing another review. We have two good roadmaps that we're following with recommendations from the Auditor General, with recommendations from Gail Donner and her expert panel. We're implementing her recommendations to make sure that we're providing the best possible care.
Thank you. Your question, the member from Toronto Danforth.
Thank you, Speaker.